When Daniel told me his mother needed a place for a few weeks, it sounded temporary. She had argued with her landlord. Something about a lease renewal. Nothing dramatic, he said. Just a little time until things settled. I didn't say no. People rarely say no at the beginning of situations that eventually become problems. The first few days were polite. Carol thanked me for letting her stay. She kept mostly to the guest room. I tried to be welcoming without hovering. But after a week, small changes started appearing around the house. The spice rack in the kitchen was reorganized. My labeled containers disappeared and were replaced with jars she preferred. Towels moved from one closet to another. Furniture shifted slightly, as if someone had studied the room and decided it needed correction. None of it was openly hostile. Just adjustments. Daniel noticed some of it but shrugged. That's just how she is. At first, I tried to tell myself the same thing. But there's a strange feeling that happens when someone slowly reshapes your living space without asking. It's subtle, but it accumulates, like being gently pushed toward the edge of your own home. Carol also developed a habit of referring to things in collective terms. Our kitchen, our living room, where should we put things? I corrected her once, lightly. My kitchen. She smiled as if I were joking. Daniel didn't notice the shift. Or maybe he did and decided it wasn't worth addressing. Either way, silence helped the situation grow. Weeks passed. No mention of moving out. One Saturday afternoon I came home from grocery shopping and saw Carol in the driveway beside her car. The trunk was open. Boxes filled the back seat. At first I assumed she had gone shopping. Then I noticed the labels on the boxes. My sister-in-law Rachel's name was written across the tape in thick marker. Carol carried a plastic storage bin toward the house like this was completely normal. I followed her inside. The bin went straight into the hallway. "What's that?" I asked. "Rachel's things," she said casually. I waited for the explanation. None came. Instead, she returned to the driveway and brought in another box. Then another. Shoes, bags, kitchen appliances, framed photos, items that clearly belonged to someone planning to live somewhere, not store things temporarily. The realization arrived slowly, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. "Why are Rachel's things here?" I asked. Carol wiped her hands on her pants like she'd just finished a chore. "She'll probably stay here for a while." Probably, not might, not can she. Just a quiet declaration. I stood there holding a grocery bag I'd forgotten to put down. "You didn't ask me." Carol looked genuinely puzzled. "Why would I?" The question hung between us. "Because this is my house. Because you're staying here as a guest. Because decisions about who moves in usually involve the person paying the mortgage." But she didn't seem to see it that way. She walked into the kitchen and started opening drawers like the conversation had already ended. I followed her. "Carol," I said carefully, "this isn't something you decide on your own." She turned, leaning against the counter. Her expression changed slightly, less pleasant now, more dismissive. "Oh please," she said. "It's family." Family. The word was doing a lot of work. "Rachel just needs somewhere comfortable for a while. That doesn't mean she moves into my house." Carol crossed her arms. The air shifted. For the first time, there was open irritation in her voice. "If you have a problem with it," she said flatly, "then leave." The sentence landed so strangely that my brain stalled for a moment. Leave. She had just told me to leave. In my own house. Something about the confidence in her voice made the situation feel absurd in a way I hadn't expected. I stared at her. And before I could filter the thought, the words came out. "Well said," I replied. Then, almost automatically, "You old hag." The silence afterward was immediate and thick. Carol blinked. Daniel had just walked into the room from the hallway, catching the last few seconds of the exchange. He froze. For a second, none of us moved. And the strangest thing happened. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop myself from laughing. Not because the situation was funny, because the authority Carol had just tried to claim was so completely detached from reality that it felt surreal. Daniel looked between us. What's going on? I set the grocery bag on the counter. Your mother is moving Rachel in, I said calmly. Apparently if I don't like it, I can leave. Daniel turned to Carol. She didn't repeat the sentence. Instead she said, "We're just helping Rachel." Daniel's face tightened. He looked at the boxes in the hallway, then at me, then back at his mother, and something in his posture finally shifted. "Mom," he said slowly, "you can't move people into someone else's house." Carol opened her mouth. But for once, Daniel didn't let the moment dissolve. "This isn't your decision." The words sounded unfamiliar coming from him. Quiet but firm. Another long silence filled the room. By evening, the boxes were back in Carol's car. No one apologized. No one pretended the argument hadn't happened. But something fundamental had changed. Carol stopped referring to the house as ours. And for the first time in weeks, the rooms felt like mine again. Not peaceful exactly. Just clearer. Sometimes conflict doesn't solve everything. But it does expose who believed they had the right to decide things for you all along.